Okay. We can't see everybody, but hello, welcome. This is our first episode of a new series, AI payments and the human risk behind fraud. So I'm Hillary. I'm just your lowly host. The reason that you actually joined is because of the two wonderful people that are with me today. We have two incredible guests, and we're going to be discussing how finance is the new front line or of cybercrime. So, with that, I would actually love if the two of you could introduce yourselves really quickly, just a little bit about you, and yeah.
Uh, so,
Esty, do you want to start?
yeah, I'll start. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm Esty, EVP Finance at Fiverr. Fiverr is a marketplace for digital services, a public traded company in the US. I actually joined Fiverr 10 years ago when we were a startup. So, I had the luxury to build a finance team from very small finance team into supporting a rapid growth billion-dollar company. Thank you guys for being here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yuval. I'm the VP of Finance at Cyera. Cyera is a cybersecurity company in the DSPM, data security posture management space. We just finalized the round of $6 billion worth. Prior to that, I spent 10 years at AppsFlyer, building the finance team from the ground up, basically from being the very first finance guy to lead a team of a $500 million ARR company pre-IPO. We didn't go through the process like Esty did, but so this is me, and happy to be here and happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, I have a lot of questions for you, and I'm excited to ask you. And a lot of those questions are actually going to be focused on these three takeaways that we promised everybody. And that is exploring why payment has become such a big target for cybercrime, where attackers are exploiting those weaknesses, and then how AI is changing the entire fraud equation. So that's the journey we're going to go on. It's going to be about the next 30 minutes. We'll be on the journey together, maybe a little bit longer if the discussion gets lively. So that is our plan for today. We're actually deliberately a pretty small webinar, so this is not a giant broadcast. So please be thinking this as like a working session. The chat is open the whole time. I encourage you to introduce yourself. I'm going to do it right now. Hi, I'm Hillary from Italy. Not from Italy, but I live in Italy. Long story. So please go ahead, say hi. This is not just even a place for you to say hi, but if you have questions, share experiences, your reactions to what is being said, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. And so we can kind of steer the conversation. So please think of it, like I said, as more as a working place. And every so often, you're going to see a poll pop up. Please take the time to answer it. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Our first poll is more about you. So when we were preparing these questions and I was asking Esty and Yuval, so they're just like, well, it depends on what kind of company you come from. And I'm like, well, let's not guess. Let's find out where everybody's coming from. So we're asking on average, how many vendor payments does your organization process per month, So to kind of get an idea of where you fit in here and what your experience is, so we can try to tailor how we discuss things to you. At the end of this, we will have an audience Q&A. So, just ask your questions. They're at the bottom of the Zoom window, and we'll save time to go through there. But as a warm-up, I wanted to ask kind of a fun question, and that is, what's the most unsettling or most convincing AI-generated fake you've seen, heard about, read about, or received yourself?
So I don't know if it's fun, right? Because this is actually scary, right? But I heard a voice message from our CEO. It was not sent to me, uh, but it was amazing. It was exactly his voice, exactly his style of speaking. And usually, I mean, we speak in Hebrew, so it was for sure that he's not sending something for me, right? But if I would heard that and someone wouldn't tell me it's AI, I wouldn't believe. I mean, I wouldn't believe it's not true.
For me, one of the things that I enjoy is collaborate with the security team and send some messages or videos to my team and see how they respond. So one thing that I did is to fake the CEO's voice as well as his video and send this to the bookkeepers team and see how they respond and what they do to test their readiness, for something extreme that will happen. I wasn't probably the most loved guy at the time, but it's one of the things that we do, just to make sure that we're keeping the team with a high readiness for extreme event. So yeah, for me it was fun to create it, but and fun to see that the team also didn't do anything and basically forward the message to the security team.
I had the same experience my first time joining a cybersecurity company. I got an email from my boss and it was in Italian. And I'm like, clearly they don't know. This is a fraudster. They don't know that my Italian is not very good yet. So one of the questions, as we were kind of coming at this with the assumption that, because we keep hearing that finance is the new hotbed of cybercrime. So from where you sit, do you see finance as being more under attack now, especially with Gen AI capabilities?
Yeah, I think finance, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the times the fraud intent is money, right? And then, finance are the ones that usually control the money. There are many processes. Some of them are old-fashioned because we're finance people. So definitely, I think together. So finance were always a source or a target, but I think now, when the technology is much smarter, I think definitely we see increase in numbers of fraud attempts. And the attackers usually, I mean, they understand they don't need to actually break into systems or steal data. They just need to approach a finance member.
For me, I would say that it's an endless, game between the fraudsters and the finance teams. They are very aware of things that are going on within our organization. For example, I joined the company a couple of months ago, and then directly the fraudsters try, to fake emails from the CEO asking me to make payments or, unordinary things that I will never do. So that's one. Another thing that I see is around banks that collapse. So now, like I think a year ago or 2 years ago, the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, and then many companies shifted their payments through other banks. So the fraudsters immediately became aware of that and basically tried to steal and send fake emails of us or other organization changing their bank accounts in such a way that will transfer the money to them. So it's about, they know what's going on within our organization, the things that we publish and like third-party events, and they will do everything they can always to try and find like the weakness part in the process and steal money. And the finance team, for the obvious reasons, is like the most like I would say the most the party that delivers the money at the end of the day, and that's obvious for them to chase us.
Yeah, it makes sense. As the purse strings, and of course, the incentive usually is money. But what I have been so surprised by is, so I did a webinar for our company, Trust Me, with a hacker, and we had him do a payment hack. He did it with me. together, and he did it about in 3 minutes. And he was just like, here's the thing, AI makes this so anyone at a coffee shop can do this. Like, you don't need skills, you don't need anything. And like real money moved as he did this hack. And so it just blew my mind that like how easy, and it can become anyone's new form of income.
Yeah, I would say that in some cases it's not even the company itself that needs to do like to have weaknesses to be a fraud, but in case like one case that we had in my previous company is that one of our one-time vendors got hacked by social engineering, and basically they sent us a legit email of them changing the bank account. But something in the way that they did that, in the language that they used, caused us just to pause and think. And basically, within like 2 weeks, they sent us an email that they were hacked and asked us not to wire any money. So basically, even if we do everything right, if one of our vendors got hacked and send us a legit email, and even if the bookkeeper calls the vendor using the number on the email that was sent rather than the original number that we have, then we can easily, make payments to the wrong vendor, and that's scary. That's scary, and that's why we need to keep them on the head of the toes, test them, and make sure that we have the right controls in place for this event not to happen.
We see that a lot, and I think we like to say that your security is only as good as your weakest vendor. In truth, right? You can spend a lot of money, but if it just takes one vendor that's small who has a weak system and they can get hacked, and then they're open right there. So this is actually a good segue for my next question. So looking at the daily payment workflows, where do attackers find the biggest cracks to slip through, in your opinion?
So I think like Yuval mentioned earlier about the incident they had. So I think if something changes, and if you guys remember, a few years ago there was an incident of Silicon Valley Bank, and overnight many companies changed, did not use the SVB account and change the route of the accounts that they're using. So I think in places where there are things are changing, processes are changing. So and this is risky places that things can happen. And there we need to be very alarmed and to really think beforehand and during the change, what can happen. So I think that, and the second piece is just the opposite. When things are not changing for a long time, right? And everything the same and the process the same, and then you are actually not on the edge anymore. So I think this is also a risky place to be.
I have nothing much to add here. I would say that in some cases, we rely on the process on, I would say, operational employees to execute and to follow the guidelines and conduct the relevant controls. And that's where we need to have employees or partners that think and understand what they do when they change something, or when they see something suspicious, rather than just strictly follow the process, because that's where mistakes gonna happen. We need to surround us by people who think and understand the consequences in case they update the bank account without follow the process as I just mentioned in the previous question.
So it sounds like security training then is what you're talking about.
It's security training, as well as understanding that the process needs to be followed, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much time they need to invest, no matter if they need to stall or hold up a payment, or just raise a flag to the finance executive to go deep dive and check. rather than just follow the process to say that they finished the payments on time, because that's where mistakes happen and money get lost.
Okay. Okay. Now, Gen AI is making emails, invoices, even calls almost look indistinguishable from the real thing. I actually was talking to another CFO, and he said that they flagged an invoice because it looked too perfect and it was fraud. So, how is that changing your reliance on traditional controls like security training, bank validations, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, I would say I'm all into automations, so definitely on that, trying to have the process very automated and then to put controls over the process. But you always need to learn where the market is at the fraud attempts are, right? Because it changes all the time. So definitely to do so, for example, for us, we have automations of payments. So we're doing from the ERP to the bank account through what is called host to host. So there won't be any manual work there. Definitely when we open a new vendor or change vendor details, so it's only about the access restrictions to the ones that have access. But I have to say these are not enough because, as you mentioned, right, things are changing all the time. So it's just try to be on top on both awareness, yes, of the team. This is very important to have awareness for the team, but also to discuss with the cyber security department in the company to have them learn what's new, what's new in the market, right? And to think how we can be affected.
For me, besides double down on automation, it's about flagging like where we find weaknesses in the process. So one, I would say that once we incorporate the vendor, that's like one thing that we need to make sure that we have the right data in place, the right bank account, the right contact list, because that's a failure point that we shouldn't have. And second one is that any changes that we do to that follow like under any circumstances. So if we no matter how many payments we have every month, we still analyze like which vendors change the bank account and why. Okay. And that's something that we do on top of the automation that we have, just to make sure that if something changed, that we are sure that these are the right details and the change that we've made is legit. That said, obviously, the fraudsters will still, try to find their own way to take the money and making us make mistakes. And that's where the common sense and us thinking about what we do before we do anything is critical. So these are the things that we are looking into at this stage.
So you both mentioned automation. So like specifically what kind of automation?
So as I mentioned, the host-to-host is an automation that we've included automations of details of vendors to move from a system to a system, so to have connection between the systems, to have one place to sign all the payments. So this is something that is also important. So it can be gathered from different bank accounts and to sign. So this is something that's still in the bake. It's not yet done, but I know there are companies that are doing that. So I think these are the main things, but I really think that in the next few years we'll see much more automations regarding payments.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I want to add something. Sorry. So for us, it's completely the same, as well as one thing that I want to highlight, the vendor creation, that we like enforce that the vendor itself will generate the details and then we confirm it later on. But at the end of the day, I think that where the weakness is you didn't ask it, but I would say even if you have the automations, is places where there are other far away, and you don't have like lots of payments. Let's say that you have a subsidiary in, I don't know, in Thailand or Indonesia or in some other far away place where the invoices are not in English or in your native language, and rely maybe on a third party or like a junior position to follow the process from A to Z, and not everything is automated because you can't automate for the process for all entities. This is where the weaknesses are. And this is where I literally check each and every payment and understand that, it's legit.
So how do you balance checking everything with being pushed, by leadership to move things quickly, right? To make sure your vendors are getting their money, especially because we looked at our audience and our audience was on the about 50%, I think was 10,000 or more. So it sounds like a lot of our audience are bigger. So if like they're in a manufacturing company that has subsidiaries in Thailand, and they're doing thousands of these and they're trying to move quickly, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think it's the automation part. I mean, I think definitely at the end of automations, and then to be able to track those places, like Yuval said, the sensitive ones, to look at. So a new vendor at the subsidiary, yeah, that's something that it needs to be checked, right? Vendors change bank details. It doesn't happen every day, right? So really to recognize what are the risk areas and to be focused on those, and to put automations for the things that are more usual.
Yeah, so I completely agree, and I will just probably reiterate and say that we want to automate as much as possible. And so we'll have the time to review and check things that are on the unordinary course of the business, right? Like bank account that were changed, some of the, I don't know, vendor that would change his name, or vendor that on the contract appears in one name, but on the ERP is in another name for some reason. These are the things that will, by automating the process as much as we can, will allow us time to manually go over and check, so we'll have the confidence that we're doing the right thing.
My last question for you before we go to a Q&A is that boards and CEOs there's a lot of reports saying that they're expecting finance to start co-owning fraud and cyber risk. How has that started to show up in your role?
So I think finance has many roles and responsibilities in general, but definitely risk management is one of them, and that's something that that is always is done, but I think now more than ever, with the awareness, with cyber attacks being more vocal. So I think collaboration with the IT, the cyber team, the procurement team, that's been expected, and to look at the process on a holistic way, right? So the payment process is not something that relates only to finance, right? It starts from an agreement. It starts from someone getting a service, and it goes through legal, and it goes through procurement, and then through finance. So first, we're being expected to look at the holistic process and understand how we collaborate to minimize the risk. And that's something that is definitely top of mind on management.
Okay.
I would say that for us, you don't want to be the person that needs to go to the board and say that we had an incident, right? So, and so on one hand, yes, we want to automate things, but on the other hand, we want to have the relevant controls in place. And as Esti said, I think that one of the things that we do, we collaborate within the organization, like with much as angles as we can. For example, once we grow, and I saw the survey here, and most attendees here, they have like thousands of payments every month. So that maybe it's a good time, for example, to limit the amount of vendors that, the new vendors that we work with. Okay, so if we have this X service, you can work with these 3 vendors that were already approved, went through the process and everything. So instead of increasing the amount of vendors, we just, doing business, but working with certified vendors, which is, I think, great methodology for, for us as the one who making thousands of payments every month.
So are you saying that you think the greatest risk is with new vendors?
It's not a greater, like, bigger risk, but the more vendors we have, even with automations, then the risk goes higher eventually, right? So so for us, having the ability to limit at a certain stage once we scale to certified vendors and say these are the vendors that we work with. So it'd be much more efficient for everyone within the organization to follow this process rather than having a new vendors joining, a new round of checks we need to make, register the vendors, vendor in our books, or okay, this is the vendor that we work with. We just, this is the agreement, and then we can move and and make payments whenever we just need. And by having that, we manage the risk of having unlimited amount of vendors in our books. Because if once we have a vendor in our books, he can be hijacked or have a social engineering incident a year after, like 2 or 3 years after, if we didn't close the vendor. And then again, the risks goes high. So I think that it's about balancing between the business needs versus, like, okay, we have already 10,000 vendors or 1,000 vendors in our books, so we probably can work with what we have now rather than just keep adding on new ones.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That's interesting because I was thinking about, the risk of new vendors or old vendors. And it was interesting when I was with that hacker. He's just like, oh, getting new vendors. He's like, that's so hard to get through. He's like, I never try to be a new vendor. He's like, it's always easier just to hack a vendor that you've had for years and years and years. And there's a huge trust there. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I was just curious.
Yeah. Once a vendor is, like, connected to your system, it's much easier for them, for the attackers to attack the vendor and then change the bank account in your ERP. But that's, again, where the controls and us doing the work that needs to be done to identify changes and make sure that they're legit and serve, like, that makes sense to us.
Okay. Well, we do have opportunity for a Q&A. So we don't have any questions yet, but please don't be shy. We have really 2 fabulous people, and you can ask them for advice. Maybe not the color that you want to paint your living room, but but yes, please ask some questions. And while we're seeing if any questions come in, I actually had another one that I wanted to ask you if you guys are fine, or we can just wait. Okay.
I just want to emphasize what Yuval said, it doesn't even matter if the incident is $10,000 or $10 million, right? You just don't want to be there. So it's just, you don't want to be there. So, and being able, I think the magic is to be able to enable the business to move forward, and not to slow down on the one hand, on the other hand, just we don't want to be there.
Well, okay. Do you have something to add, Yuval?
No, we just love our job. We don't want to be fired, right? So that's
That's the same with all of us. Well, thank you guys so much. I just want to reiterate that this is the first of our series, so there's going to be more coming up. So we have another session that is about focusing on how Gen AI outsmarts callbacks and bank validation specifically. We see that a lot at the company that is sponsoring this, Trust Me. So we thought that would be an interesting topic for everybody to look into. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, like, one takeaway from this conversation that we've had with the questions and where it's gone. And yeah, one takeaway. Esty, what would it be for you?
It really depends. So maybe I know 50% has many payments, but there are probably the other 50 probably has less. So I think it really depends to tailor-made the processes to the company that you are at. But really remember that for all companies, for all processes, for all sizes, really to identify where are those risks and to put the intention there. It's something, so even from the smallest company, it really can happen. It can happen with the company that has thousands of payments. But really understand, put it to have, and as finance, as I said, we have so many things to do. But at the end of the day, the one thing that is most important for our shareholders, for our management, for our employees, for our customers, and for our suppliers is trust. And trust is about doing everything we can that things would not happen. So to put the attention there and try to and to focus, to leave some time to focus on that, to understand what can happen and to put controls.
For me, it's about the understanding that, payments to vendors can be easily being perceived as a, recurring a task that no one wants to, spend too much time. Let's get over it and move on to the next one. It's pretty technical. We are doing every 15 or 30 days the same task over and over and again. And that's where organization may fail and may, make mistakes. So we should always be attentive. We should always think and look at this process as more a strategic perspective rather than an operational one. And test the team, make sure that they're ready, because at the end of the day, once people think and understand and not going like the process, everything like automated step by step without any thinking in the way, that's where mistakes are happening. So always think and look at the process, view it as a strategic one, have the right controls in place. So you will not be the one that needs to go to the board and say something bad happened to the company and now I need to explain. That's always remember that and then take one step backwards on the process.
Well, thank you both, Esty, Yuval, for sharing your insights today, and for all of you who have joined and participated in the discussion. Also, thank you to the person sponsoring this, Trust Me, for hosting the event. Trust Me is a behavioral AI system that helps with secure social engineering fraud. If you think the name is interesting, please check us out at trustme.ai. We hope to see you at the next session of this series. And thanks again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.